صباح الخير. Good morning, everyone. Excellencies, ambassadors, ladies and gentlemen, dear guests, I would like to thank you for having me with you today in this panel on turbocharging the green and circular economy in Egypt. And I would like to invite Her Excellency Dr. Yasmine Fouad, the Minister of Environment, to join me on stage. Mr. Ousmane Dione, the World Bank Vice President for Middle East and North Africa. Ms. Aida Sitdikova, Director, Head of Energy at European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, EBRD. Mr. Helmut von Struve, the CEO of Siemens in the Middle East. And Ms. Marie-Louise Bishara, CEO of Bishara for Fashion Company. Good morning, distinguished panels. Today's panel is designed to foster an open dialogue and collaboration among some of the most influential minds in the industry, finance, and sustainability ecosystem. Our focus today is on accelerating the adoption of green and circular economic models in Egypt, a transition that promises both environmental benefits as well as significant economic opportunities for the nation. As we gather here today, our world, and indeed Egypt, is at a pivotal crossroad. The norm of the linear economy model is no longer a sustainable way, and we need to think in a circular manner to reuse, recycle, remanufacture, repurpose, and to maximize the value of the material and the resources we have in the globe. And this will help in building a sustainable economic ecosystem, a sustainable use of resource in an efficient manner, and also to create some decent jobs for the population. So I will start the questions by asking Mr. Ousmane, the World Bank. I know that the World Bank is supporting Egypt's transition to green and circular economy by providing technical assistance, financial support for initiatives that reduce industrial pollution and promote for more sustainable practices. So now, as Egypt seeks to integrate more sustainable practices within its economic framework, how can the World Bank support the development and scaling of circular economy initiatives in the country, specifically with opportunities? What opportunities do you see in the coming years for Egypt?
Thank you. Is it on? Thank you. Thank you, Ayman. Let me first start by congratulating the government of the Arab Republic of Egypt and EU for this excellent forum, and congratulations, Madam Minister. Ayman, you raised a very important question, but let me start by stressing some important facts. First is that Egypt made a clear commitment when it comes to green growth. The commitment is outlined in Egypt Vision for 2030, the National Structural Reform Program, the National Climate Change Strategy, and more recently, the economic orientation, which was outlined by His Excellency President Al-Sisi. The second point is that over the past 10 years, Egypt has performed consistently better in attracting green FDIs compared to the rest of the Middle East and North Africa. And this is an important point to mention. So Egypt is in an excellent position to leverage renewable energy potential, as we heard yesterday through many speakers. And this is also evidenced by the fact that the solar, the wind, the green hydrogen ambitions are all potential which can be tapped on going forward. The third element is when we look at the country environmental analysis, which was carried out by the World Bank, there is an emphasis that industries in Egypt have room to improve their efficiency. When you look at the plastic agenda, when you look at the glass, when you look at, for example, the electric, the electronics, equipment, the textiles, the constructions, all those sectors in reality offers the opportunity of circularity potential between 40 to 80%. This is huge. But this is not just about the industry sector. It is also about some other elements. And there are two aspects which come to my mind when I look at the circularity. And I will come to your point, which is important to question. First is solid waste management. The World Bank is currently supporting Egypt establish one of the largest solid waste management in the 10th of Ramadan, in the outskirts of Cairo. And this facility is going to reduce all the potential which was going to the landfill from 100% up to 25%. Second, which is important, is when you look at the agri-food, which usually is seen as one of the biggest contributors, up to 34% of emissions. So here again, circular technologies can really contribute on how to build the circularity on some sectors, such as water up to 90%, but also energy up to 80%. And this has a huge impact when it comes then to how to increase productivity and exports. Now, while I'm mentioning all these good things, let us bear in mind one important factor, which is the trends toward green transformation. And circular economy offers many opportunities. But Egypt must remain vigilant. Egypt must be careful not to lose the market share in key exporting sectors where emissions and sustainability are becoming much more stringent, like the CBAM. For example, exports such as in the chemicals. Egypt has higher carbon intensity than its competitors. This is an area where Egypt has really to remain vigilant. Now, coming to your questions, let me just offer 3 ingredients which I believe are important on how to turbocharge, the green economic transformation of Egypt. So what are we doing with Egypt? First, creating an enabling environment. And that enabling environment has really to require predictability in terms of how is the financing, but also to streamline, registration, permit processes, strengthening environmental governance in some aspect, develop quality certification schemes, and build the capacity of different stakeholders. In reality, what this is going to do is really to support local entrepreneurs to invest more in clean technologies. It is also give FDI, foreign direct investments, the potentiality to come and to invest in Egypt. The second point on what we are doing is currently to better engage the private sector. The private sector has a huge role to play in the circularity. And here again, going back to the example of the waste management, the first thing which we have done is, if you look at currently the Greater Cairo air pollutions, we had involved the private sector with one of the design model, which include design, build, finance, and operate, which is a model where the government owns the infrastructure, but which is being privately operated. And in reality, what we have done here was to provide 30 million EBRD, which was leveraged by 400 million from the private sector. This is an area where I think building more and more from the private sector support will be important. The last point, which is important in my point of view, is we need, when we talk about circularity, we need also to think about the support to a longer-term risk capital and to promote green innovative financing, including climate finance. And here, the bank has been working with the government of Egypt on issues related to how to strengthen the regulatory framework, how to strengthen governance system, and to secure the efficiency with respect to trustable carbon market and how to increase access to climate finance. I think those different elements offer ingredients for which more and more, as we will be moving in this agenda, we can really support Egypt on the circularity. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ousmane. So you mentioned in your answer the role of the private sector, and this paved the way for the question to Siemens. And just to clarify that we postponed the question to Her Excellency till the end of the panel. I'll move now to Siemens, a European private sector company operating in Egypt on several projects. So my question to Mr. Helmut, if you can tell us a little bit more on Siemens operations in Egypt, the challenges you faced, the opportunities you found in the country, and how you see the domain of circular economy can attract more foreign investment in the country.
Ayman, thank you very much. And first, it's a pleasure and an honor being on this esteemed panel, and also congratulations to this very successful conference, which is a very important 2 days that we are here together to discuss various topics. Now, looking at Siemens, Egypt is for us, I mean, we are in Egypt since close to 120 years. I mean, we opened our first office in 1901, and our founder was here in 1859 to lay subsea cables through the Red Sea from Egypt to India. So we do have a rich history, and we have throughout this period delivered technology that is helping Egypt to and helped Egypt's development across the years. Today we are having and we are providing technology to various industries, whether it's the infrastructure side, industrial sector, or mobility, and I'll come to this in a minute. And some of the current projects that are really also reflecting on how to enhance the green economy in the country. Let me start with the mobility side. I mean, we are building Egypt's, and Siemens Mobility is building Egypt's state-of-the-art high-speed rail network, which is a 2,000-kilometer long development that is happening. It connects 60 cities throughout the country, and it's a fully electrified transportation system that will create and will enable Egypt to become the country with the 6th largest railway network infrastructure in the world. And it will help also to cut carbon emissions down by 70%. So you will achieve 900,000 tons of CO2 equivalent savings by operating this electrified transport system compared to diesel locomotives or diesel transportations. The other area which plays an equally significant role, and I just spoke to a gentleman over there, is the smart water networks. Smart water networks and resource efficiency is clearly what also Siemens does. Our technology is deployed across the country, and it allows various municipalities, including the one in the new administrative capital, to not only monitor, but also to optimize water distribution and irrigation system, significantly reducing leaks and improve overall flow management. And last but not least, we have spoken and heard a lot about the energy transition, bringing green energy into the energy mix. And we are building a state-of-the-art new National Energy and Control Center in the new administrative capital that allows you to, including a backup control center that allows, by running on Siemens' flagship control center platform, to monitor, steer, overview the transmission management, which is an absolutely critical element in order to have a stable grid infrastructure. It's monitoring, it's supervising, and it also allows you to do the forecasting for renewable energy, which is looking at the intermittence of renewable energy, a crucial element. Network analysis, optimization, and also general dispatch and control. With deploying smart meter technology and distribution technology for our customers and for the customers here in Egypt, this will ensure that the power is more reliable and also sustainable. When you talk about challenges, it's more the opportunities. I mean, financing, I think, is one of the big topics of making financing available also for transition in a more greener environment. And to make it also easier to adopt green technology in, for example, the private sector. We have, Ousmane, you mentioned it, and I think Your Excellency will talk about it as well, the drive of clear government policies, which also then helps to enable private sector companies to adopt technologies to meet those targets. And you also said it, by adopting technologies that help factories to produce green products in order and benefiting from free trade agreements that Egypt has with various economies across the globe, to adapt to once this technology had been adopted, to be competitive, even as a small and medium-sized enterprise, to be competitive against some of the bigger players. And the technology is there. We have various building blocks that enable the deployment of various tools like digital twins, like artificial intelligence, and even going as far as looking at an industrial metaverse to simulate and predict how, once you set up a new factory, this factory can be further optimized and the output can be optimized. So there are various solutions in place, and we are very proud with our local partners, Swedish and Orascom, our contractors, Hassan Alam, to deploy this type of technologies and showcase actually what can be done. So there are, I would say, tremendous opportunities for this country and for the industries, and also to attract foreign direct investment coming here to set up operations and to benefit from the technologies that we can deliver.
Thank you. So now moving to the perspective of the Egyptian private sector, after hearing from the European private sector, and specifically to the textile and fashion sector, where Bishara for fashion is one of the leading textile companies in the country. So I would like to ask Ms. Marie on the best practices you see in the Egyptian textile and industry going into circular models, and what opportunities do you see for attracting foreign investors in this domain?
Gladly, the industry has been growing fast the last 3 years. Actually, Egypt has been exporting for only 1.3 billion US dollars garments to the world. Now, after 3 years of growth, we've reached like 2.4 billion US dollars, exporting majorly to the United States, to Europe, and to other countries, Arab countries as well. And thus, we have been complying to the EU demands regarding sustainability and regarding waste management. Egyptian garment industries have been used to reuse the waste of their fabrics through two ways. Either recycling into new goods like new yarn, or exactly selling the waste directly to companies abroad who are doing this matter of recycling. Mostly Italy, if I name Prato, is one of the main cities of the world that's recycling wool. So the fact that we can import the tweed yarns that are already recycled from the wool of the world, you know, Italy is importing wool and recycling it. We are not, we are recycling cotton. So most of the countries are using many materials that are completely grown in-house in the country, like the cotton. We've been working very hard on training the women farmers on the best practices to grow cotton and to cultivate cotton that is non-contaminated and that is organic. It's been a very big move the last few years. And Egyptian industrials have been using mostly non-contaminated organic cottons the last 3 years to grow their exports. On another note, water recycling treatment has become a major and a rule, a regulation into our industry. So dyeing, finishing, even using chemicals in all the cycle of textiles, it's mandatory to water recycle. Diminishing the CO2 emissions within all the vertical industry has been one of our major concerns as industrials. So now people are searching to work with smaller boilers than the huge boilers with great CO2 emissions. We are transforming the use of energy completely from regular electricity to LED electricity. All the big machines that have been using the major boilers are now getting revamped by having internally small boilers, so you don't have to use the great capacity. Many young designers, and with the COP27 initiative, we have worked with most of the exporters to do collections of fashion and designing new collections that are used from waste, either from waste of scraps of fabrics or used yarns. So there is a very big direction now to even reuse the capacity of fabrics that have been stocked over years to re-dye, to reprint, and so on. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
So the second challenge that was mentioned by Mr. Ousmane was about financing. So moving back to the EBRD, Ms. Aida, if you can share with us how EBRD and Egypt can work together in promoting for financial instruments that will facilitate or would turbocharge the uptake of the green economy in the country.
No? Okay, I'm on. Thank you. Thanks. EBRD has been financing and promoting circular economy for over a decade now. We were actually the first MDB with a dedicated approach to what was called the Sustainable Resource Initiative back 10 years ago in 2013. And since then, we financed over 2 billion euro in investments, over more than 200 specific projects related to circular economy. That was supported by the what we call policy engagement on working together with our partners in EU and EIB on developing classification of circularity. And this is what we actually use for internal reporting and accounting for our investments. And of course, this theme is cutting across multiple sectors and goes hand in hand with the green and decarbonization agenda, which followed after the Sustainable Resource Initiative. We have green economy transition, but now it's going hand in hand. Decarbonization and circularity going hand in hand throughout our engagements. Local carbon pathways for industrial sectors like cement and fertilizers, for example, have circular economy aspects that are taken into consideration in specific investments targeting decarbonization, reducing the carbon footprint of specific industry, but also making it more resource efficient. Or in the financial institution sector, we work with partner banks and credit lines, providing credit lines that have to incorporate circular economy requirements as well, including through the Green Transition Accelerator, a specific toolkit that looks at how our investments meet the requirements. And maybe a final example is NWEFI. This is the subject that's been discussed throughout this event very closely, and this is something that we are very proud to have kicked off in Egypt, well, of course together, or supporting the government in Egypt with the specific goal of decarbonizing the energy sector, of building 10 gigawatts of renewables, and decommissioning old capacity. But it's not just that. It's also creating local green value chains. And this is where we think localization can provide a lot of opportunities for circular economy growth through creation of jobs, through green growth in Egypt, for which we see enormous potential, of course. We will be delighted to see foreign investors, say wind manufacturers, coming into the country, establishing their facilities and sharing their European wind manufacturers, sharing their experience on waste management plants, on recycling of blades, turbines. This is something that is still sort of on a learning curve for many stakeholders. We don't know what the exact technology, recycling technology, will be 20 years down the road for those things. But we know that in our investments, we do require a waste management plan that would take into consideration the current technology at the time in 20 years when the PPA is expiring, for example. So it's a really good fit with the youth agenda of nearshoring, Egypt's agenda of localization and creating jobs and green growth. Tied up to that, of course, is circularity of the economy and green decarbonizing. So we see it all as a holistic approach. We just financed a local SME on waste management of in the 6th of October city to reduce the solvent. It's a printing packaging operator, and where we helped to reduce the waste with the solvent. And then we go into, the scale is big, and then we go into the investments under WEFI, which is a much bigger scale, but also sort of important and has its benefits as well. So overall, we think to support financing and circularity, we will continue to do what we have been doing together with our partners, including World Bank and EU, and we will be seeking to attract blended finance, which might be needed to mitigate some first mover externalities. We will seek to de-risk investments into circular economy. And again, just to reiterate, we'll see it in a holistic way, together with decarbonization, together with nearshoring and localization. Thank you.
Thank you. So now, after listening to the different viewpoints, I would like to ask Her Excellency, Dr. Yasmine. I know that the Ministry of Environment is leading many steps towards greening the industry and greening the country. So if you can shed the light on what is the potential for green and circular economy in Egypt, and also what ambitions and policies, actions have been taken by the government to attract more investments in this direction.
Thank you very much, and let me greet all that is in the room as well as the panelists. I'll respond in two parallel ways. The one is that we would not have been here today on a session that's named Circular and Green Economy if the country has not invested in creating an enabling environment. This was touched base, by the way, by the VP of the World Bank and from the EBRD and from Siemens and from Marie, but let me put it that way. When we're talking about the environment or the green economy, you have to link that to the real economic development process of the country. And that is the action that our president decided to have, is that we're not going to isolate that portfolio away from the socio-economic pathways of our citizens. Number two, in the middle of the COVID, we were the first country that decided that we are going to reach 100% of our projects to be green projects that will be funded from the public funding. And that was a very bold and aggressive decision, because if we would not do that, we would not ask the private sector come and put an investment in the green part in our country. The third one was more related to how to package a legal and a regulatory framework. If we're talking about circular economy, then we have to have a waste management law that focuses on circular economy, that enable the private sector in order to work on all the waste stream, and the country would regulate that part. And that law was adopted by the Parliament in 2020 and the Executive Regulation 2022. And even when the World Bank is talking about the contribution of the biggest facility of waste in Egypt in the 10th of Ramadan, that's done with the World Bank, but that will be designed, built, and operated by the private sector on all waste stream, whether it's the garbage, the medical, or the demolition and construction waste. Last but not least, moving forward with our international commitment. You cannot isolate yourself when you create an enabling environment by only looking under your own feet. And this was something that we wanted to make. So having the strategy, the NDC for the climate action, working now on our biodiversity strategy and action plan would make that kind of linkages between what we are trying to do at the international level and at the national level, besides definitely the banking sector and all of that. In a snapshot, an enabling environment would mean you need to have an institutional setup, regulatory and legal framework, engagement of the citizen, and everyone should be there on board. And this is what we have paved the way for the last 10 years. Where are the potentials for Egypt? We heard here the part related throughout today and yesterday, the renewables, energy efficiency. We heard from Mary as well as from Siemens on the part related to the industry and the localizing the chain itself and how can we work on the textile. But I see other two sectors that have big potentials in Egypt based on the recent reviews that came from the OECD and from the country environmental analysis by the World Bank, because we had that too this year. The first sector was mentioned very quickly, but was not in depth on that, was the waste management sector. And here I'm not talking about the municipal only. We're talking about the agriculture waste, we're talking about the construction and demolition waste, we're talking about the medical waste. A huge potential for the private sector investment because the infrastructure is there, the law is there, and the incentives already is part of our investment law that we have declared 2 years ago on all waste stream. The second sector is the food security, and this is where the private sector can pitch in, but we need also to have the MDBs as part of de-risking the capital of the private sector. Nobody from the private sector would come and invest in a certain type of crops that would sustain extreme weather events if they are not having a de-risk on their investment. Exactly like the story that the MDBs has done with renewable energy. In the beginning, renewable energy was not profitable, but because the MDBs did pitch in and have that de-risk, the private sector was encouraged to go into that. Last point that I would like also to mention as also one new sector that maybe was not very much aligned with the circular economy, but more with the green economy, the tourism sector and working on nature-positive solutions. Egypt is a country that has a Mediterranean Sea and a Red Sea. It has a very strategic location. It's among Africa, the MENA region, and Europe. And that would give a boost to all the economies around us if more investment would go into the nature positive part on the Mediterranean and the Red Sea. We've started those measures already with announcing the Great Fringe Reef in the Red Sea and putting out our protected area for the private sector concession, for the eco-lodges and for the private sector. And we're starting a new nature fund with the EBRD and other multi-stakeholder in order to de-risk the private sector investment in the nature positive solutions. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Your Excellency. And unfortunately, we will have to end up the panel now because of some other commitments. But before we close the panel, I would like to ask each of the panelists if you can share only one sentence on what are the most exciting opportunities for Egypt in developing its green and circular economy. Only one sentence, please. So, Mr. Ousmane, please.
It will be very simple. Invest in Egypt.
Your Excellency?
One sentence, I'll say a just green transition in Egypt with the potential of 200 billion USD of private sector investment as indicated in the CCTR.
Okay, a sentence from me. It would be just carpe diem, use the momentum now. Egypt has all the benefits we heard this today and yesterday. It's this political will and government commitment. Grab that, but also think of shortening supply chains, growing the local manufacturing base, and reducing waste. Thank you.
Okay, Madame Marie.
Cooperating with the EU to transfer a know-how from the various countries to whom we are exporting to grow a product that is completely sustainable and green. So training, capacity building, lean manufacturing, such subjects together with the EU would be the best, I think, for the coming time.
I mean, for me, there are many exciting opportunities, but I come back to the one that I mentioned earlier. It's the high-speed rail network that is being built up, and it's the digital twin that we deployed for the complete 2,000 kilometers, which enables a significant improvement in the in deploying this project and also helping to optimize the resource efficiency. So that's my example.
Yeah. Thank you, and I would like to thank our distinguished panelists for the interesting panel we had today. I hope that we managed to shed the light on what is green and circular economy, what are the opportunities in this domain, and thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you.
Your Excellency, Dr. Yasmine Fouad, the Minister of Environment, our esteemed and distinguished guests, thank you very much for shedding the light on the latest efforts to reach our goals in green and circular economies in Egypt.